History remembers her for two things: her beauty and her love affairs with two of the most powerful men in the world. She has been immortalized as a femme fatale, a seductive queen who used her charms to bend empires to her will. But this image, crafted by her enemies and sensationalized by centuries of plays and films, is a lie. The real Cleopatra was a political genius, a brilliant scholar, a ruthless commander, and a survivor whose greatest weapon was not her beauty, but her mind. Welcome to 60-Second Legacy. If you love the true stories of powerful women, subscribe right now, because today we unveil the real, forgotten legacy of Cleopatra, the last queen of the Nile. Our story begins not in an Egyptian temple, but in the heart of Greek power. Cleopatra, born in 69 BC, was not Egyptian. She was Greek, a direct descendant of Ptolemy I, one of Alexander the Great's most trusted generals, who had installed himself as Pharaoh of Egypt 300 years earlier. For 3 centuries, her family, the Ptolemaic dynasty, had ruled Egypt, but they remained stubbornly separate from their subjects. They spoke Greek, observed Greek customs, and often married their own siblings to keep the bloodline pure. This dynasty was a viper's nest of incest, betrayal, and murder. Cleopatra's own father had his eldest daughter executed. Cleopatra herself would later have her sister Arsinoe killed on the steps of a temple. This was the brutal world that forged her. To survive, she had to be more ruthless and more clever than anyone else. From a young age, she proved she was different. Unlike every other member of her dynasty, she did something revolutionary. She learned the Egyptian language. This brilliant move was a political masterstroke. It allowed her to speak directly to her people, to their priests, and to their officials, earning her a love and loyalty that her Greek-speaking ancestors never had. But she didn't stop there. The great library of Alexandria, the intellectual center of the ancient world, was her personal university. Ancient sources claim she spoke as many as 9 languages, was a gifted mathematician, and was a student of philosophy and rhetoric. She was not just a queen, she was an intellectual powerhouse. Her reign began in chaos. At 18, she ascended the throne as co-ruler with her 10-year-old brother, Ptolemy III, to whom she was also married, according to tradition. But the court eunuchs who controlled her young brother saw her intelligence and independence as a threat. They conspired against her, and a civil war erupted. Cleopatra was driven from Alexandria, exiled, and seemingly defeated. It was at this moment of absolute desperation that she made the most audacious gamble in history. The Roman general, Julius Caesar, had arrived in Egypt. Cleopatra knew that if she could win his support, she could win back her kingdom. Her most legendary moment, of course, was her meeting with Caesar. But this wasn't a love story. It was a desperate political act. To bypass her brother's guards who controlled the harbor, the 21-year-old queen had herself smuggled into Caesar's palace. The historian Plutarch tells us she was rolled up inside a carpet or a bed sack. When the bundle was unfurled before Caesar, she dramatically appeared, a queen emerging from the wrappings like a butterfly from a chrysalis. It was a piece of political theater so brilliant, so unexpected, that it instantly captured the attention of the world's most powerful man. He was charmed by her wit, impressed by her intelligence, and captivated by her sheer audacity. He chose to back her. The alliance was sealed. With the power of Rome behind her, Cleopatra's forces defeated her brother's army. Her brother drowned in the Nile while trying to flee. Caesar restored her to the throne, this time with an even younger brother as a co-ruler she could easily control. But their relationship was more than political. They became lovers, and she gave birth to his only known son, Ptolemy Caesar, nicknamed Caesarion, or Little Caesar. For Cleopatra, this child was her ultimate trump card, a potential heir to both the legacy of the pharaohs and the might of Rome. For the Roman Senate, he was a terrifying threat. After Caesar returned to Rome, he invited Cleopatra to join him. She lived in a lavish villa on the outskirts of the city, a symbol of Caesar's power, but also a source of immense scandal. The Romans, with their strict traditional values, saw her as an exotic, decadent, and dangerous foreign queen. Her influence over their dictator was deeply resented. When Caesar was assassinated on the Ides of March in 44 BC, Cleopatra's position in Rome became untenable. She fled back to Egypt with her son, her future once again uncertain. The Roman world descended into another brutal civil war. From the chaos emerged two new powerful figures: Caesar's adopted son and heir, Octavian, and his most loyal general, Mark Antony. In the division of the empire, Antony took control of the wealthy eastern provinces, including Egypt. He summoned Cleopatra to Tarsus to answer for her supposed support of his enemies. It was a test, and Cleopatra knew she had to make another grand entrance. This time she didn't use a carpet, she used a fleet. She arrived on a magnificent barge with purple sails and silver oars, its crew dressed as nymphs. She herself was dressed as the goddess Venus, lounging under a golden canopy, fanned by boys dressed as cupids. It was a spectacle of such overwhelming opulence and power that it completely disarmed Antony. He was expecting a supplicant queen. He got a living goddess. They became lovers, and more importantly, political and military partners. For a decade, they ruled the East together, a power couple who dreamed of forging a new Hellenistic empire to rival the growing power of Octavian in Rome. But their ambition and their very public love affair became their downfall. In Rome, Octavian waged a brilliant propaganda war. He painted Antony as a weak, drunken Roman who had been bewitched by a decadent foreign queen. He portrayed their relationship not as a political alliance, but as a betrayal of Roman values. The final straw came with the donations of Alexandria. At a massive public ceremony, Antony declared Cleopatra the Queen of Kings and her son, Caesarion, the true legitimate son and heir of Julius Caesar. He then distributed Roman territories in the east to her and her children. To a Roman audience, this was unforgivable treason. Octavian finally had the justification he needed for war. The final confrontation came at the naval battle of Actium in 31 BC. The combined fleets of Antony and Cleopatra were decisively defeated by Octavian's navy. The lovers fled back to Egypt, their dream of an empire in ruins. With Octavian's forces closing in on Alexandria, their story reached its tragic end. Antony, mistakenly believing a false report that Cleopatra was already dead, took his own life by falling on his sword. He was brought to Cleopatra's mausoleum, where he died in her arms. With Antony gone, Cleopatra knew her own end was near. The famous story is that she committed suicide by the bite of an asp, a symbol of divine royalty, smuggled to her in a basket of figs. However, many historians now believe it's more likely she used a fast-acting poison, perhaps from a pin dipped in a potent toxin. It was a final, controlled act from a woman who was a scientist, as much as she was a queen. A woman who chose a quick, quiet death over the humiliation of being paraded through the streets of Rome in Octavian's triumph. She was not just a beautiful seductress, she was a linguist, a commander, a scientist, and a master politician who held one of the world's greatest empires at bay for over 2 decades. Her legacy is one of brilliant, ruthless power, not just passion. What do you think is the most impressive part of Cleopatra's real story? Was it the carpet, the barge, or her command of 9 languages? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed uncovering this hidden legacy, please leave a like, and for more untold stories of history's greatest icons, subscribe to 60 Second Legacy.